who you saw, where you're going, and so language gives you a kind of power. I did a piece for National Geographic out of Egypt. It's a long story. It never actually ran. They came to me and said, we want to have a piece on the real Egypt. Are you from Egypt?
From Gaza. I'm from Gaza.
Okay. Oh, really?
Yeah, my family's.
I said, no, you don't want to hire me. I just done a piece in Harper's on Han Yunis. I don't know if you ever saw it, The Gaza Diary. But anyway, got me in a lot of trouble. And
Again.
I went and lived in Han Yunis for 10 days. I didn't interview any PA officials, Palestinian officials. I didn't interview. I just day in and day out. I mean, and I was there when the Israelis were like shooting 10-year-old kids. I mean, I watched it and I wrote it, and I went to the hospital, in a few cases their funerals, and I mean it just exploded. Anyway, so National Geographic, they don't want to hear all these old stories. Anyway, so they come to New York and they say, we want you to go. No, they say, we National Geographic, which by the way prides itself on writing at a 7th grade level, it really is the worst written schlock. The photos are great. And so they said, no, we want to have an edge. We want you. I said, okay. So I go to Egypt. And I went to southern Egypt. I wanted to write about poverty, so I went and lived in a village. I got Jahardia while I was there, where they make mud bricks, and they have for generations, and they sell it. And I wanted to write about the real Egypt, not Luxor and the Giza pyramids, but Egypt is an appallingly poor country. 50% of the people live on less than $2 a day, and I wanted to show it. And when the Muhabarat, or the secret police, found out I spoke Arabic, they went completely berserk. Because for this reason, they couldn't set up a filter to stop me from understanding what was happening. And so I was with a great Iranian photographer, Reza, if you know him. He's really famous, really cool guy. Anyway, and he speaks Farsi, but he knows Arabic too. It just got comical. Like, we wanted to go out to the cane fields, and we're leaving, and there's a police roadblock, and they won't let us through, and won't let us through, and won't let us through. Finally, after like 2 hours, they let us through, and we get out to the cane fields, and every single cane worker is like new jeans and Ray-Ban sunglasses. Like that. They like gotten rid of all the workers, pulled in the secret. I mean, it got to that level. But that's a good example of why you want the language, because you just pick, not only you can actually report, but you always pick stuff up. Translators never translate the most important thing. It's that little aside. It's that little.
Yeah, you have to ask.
Yeah, I mean so I'm a big believer in really, and look, I'm not any gifted linguist. I used to be an athlete in college. I got an athletic scholarship to college, and it's just like that. It's like going to practice every day. You just got to get up and like learn the verb declensions. It's awful, but it's like you got to do it. And the idea that you pick it up in the street is just wrong. You have to study. I mean, like with the Arabic, I did 4 hours a day. I did 160 hours of Arabic. It was all tutoring, and even then, my Arabic, which was pretty deteriorated, wasn't great. It was all right. But you just connect with the culture on so many levels. I mean, culturally, you begin to connect. It's really important.
Well, let me ask you, did you make a point of not letting people in authority know that you spoke the language? I would think that would be a great benefit to have them not know. I think it would work to your advantage, wouldn't it?
I don't know that I hid it.
Yeah.
I think like, for instance, when we went to this village, they just assumed it because they weren't prepared.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the funny story is that they took the story, and if you can ever get a gig with National Geographic, do it. I'll never get another one. They pay $20,000 for it. It's the most I've ever been paid for a story. And so it's all laid out in the galleys, ready to go. And the television division reads it and freaks out and goes, if we print this story, we'll never film another special on King Tut. And that's where they make their money. And they yanked it. They didn't print it.
Oh.
And I went down there, and they tried to screw around with my Kilfie. And that's when having post-traumatic stress disorder really comes in. And I walked in that office, and I looked like I was going to leap over the desk, and I might have. And they just wrote that check really fast. But I mean, that's a window into how these institutions work. I mean, I think that the real credo of the New York Times or any commercial news organization is do not significantly alienate the people on whom you depend for access and money. You can do it sometimes, but not all the time. And good reporters do it all the time. Sidney Schamberg says, and I was talking to Sidney a while ago in New York, and he was saying, I mean, we both lament, and we were talking earlier, but we lament the demise of these institutions, but we don't want to, without fear and favor, and, this is just garbage. But Sidney said, and we're all terrified. I mean, we're watching the Philadelphia Inquirer maybe go dark. I mean, nobody's going to be there to cover courts. Nobody's going to cover, I mean, it really is catastrophic for our democracy. And yet we don't want to be Pollyannish about the failings of these institutions. But as Schamberg said, it's not so much maybe that these institutions made things better, but they stopped things from getting worse. And I think for me that is the benefit